Well, with me now is Ben Todd, Executive Director at the Arcola Theatre in Hackney. Ben, I hope I pronounced the name of the theatre correctly, first of all.
Yes, that's correct. Good
The
morning.
Arcola Theatre. Tell us about the challenges you're facing there right now. Tell us about the theatre, how many people are employed there, and how this might be impacting productions.
Yeah, so obviously, as a theatre, we are exactly in the crosshairs, if you like, of organisations whose purpose is to bring large groups of people together. So theatres, pubs, bars, restaurants, and the like. And essentially, we've just lost probably 80% of our income for what is probably going to be quite a prolonged period. So it puts us in a really difficult position. We kind of welcome, in some sense, the government advice to say that people shouldn't go to bars and restaurants and theatres because it makes it much easier for us to stand by the position. In fact, we decided to take over the weekend, which was to close and to delay our 20th anniversary season. We now have hundreds of people at risk if we think about both our core staff, so our own in-house staff, but also all of those freelancers. You know, many of the people that work in the arts, they're on freelance contracts. They already have a fairly precarious income, and if suddenly we're not able to engage them, the rest of the sector's not able to engage them, there's a real challenge here.
So 80% of your income gone for the foreseeable future. You are a charity, as you say, your aim is to support artists. How are you going to be able to do that without that income?
Yeah, I mean, that's the killer. So I mean, obviously this is an awful thing for everybody. We have this kind of contradiction almost between, well, the imperative to save the organisation, which if you think you've got no income means essentially cutting as hard as you can, and this other imperative, which is to support artists. And then add into that mix that our objective is to support our community. And at the moment, the way of supporting the community is not to bring them all together. What we're hoping is obviously for a cash injection from government. We've heard lots of talk, obviously, about government injections into airlines, and we're expecting some injections to come into other parts of business. We would hope to have that flow to us so that we can protect the creative industries. The other, I think, important thing for us is what can we do with the creative industries to repurpose them to kind of to go from, if you like, being part of the problem to being part of the solution. We've got a massive social upheaval sort of ongoing and ahead of us, which in some sense, from the kind of spiritual well-being, emotional well-being sense, is actually only going to get harder as we have more and more people isolated. How do we deploy artists in the creative sector to actually come up with creative ways of engaging people? There's only so many kind of Netflix, Amazon Prime box sets people can watch before they start to go stir crazy. So this is a challenge for us to find ways to engage our staff so we can keep employing them, but also to justify that support that we hope we will gain.
That's a really interesting thought, Ben. I've just been reading as well that the choreographer Sir Matthew Bourne is among leading figures in the creative industries, appealing to the Prime Minister to close performing arts venues by law in order to safeguard jobs. Now, I don't know how you're affected by that particular appeal. Because you're a charity, I don't know what sort of insurance you have and whether you will be able to reclaim any of those funds if it was declared by law that venues like yours had to close.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things we've been looking at over the last couple of weeks and months as we've been looking at potentially making this decision ahead of government mandate. In our particular case, we probably, like many small charities, we carry fairly limited insurance. So it doesn't affect our ability to claim because we don't have business interruption cover. What it does affect is that kind of triggering of force majeure clauses in contracts. Now, again, it goes back to that challenge for us, is that having the right to use a force majeure contract would allow us to essentially terminate contracts with artists, yet we don't want to. So it's, I guess, in our space, whether the government mandates it or not is less important. I think for some of the other organisations, it probably really is important. I think the key for us is, one way or other, we need to not make large swathes of the population unemployed. That'll be a very difficult thing to manage, getting money to people. It will also make the recovery incredibly difficult. If essentially all of these organisations collapse, when the time comes to bring people back together, it would be much easier if we still had our teams together, artists were still engaged and working with each other, and we could essentially, like we've been talking about with UEFA, essentially just move our seasons of activity backwards with everybody having not kind of fall into abject poverty in the meantime.
Okay, Ben, thank you very much for talking to us. Ben Todd, Executive Director at the Arcola Theatre in Hackney, and we wish you and all your colleagues well there.